Welcome back to the Inner Slot podcast. This week, episode number 22. It's been a couple of weeks since we recorded our last one. Today, it's just me and Chris here. Obviously, off season, not so much to talk about, but there's some pretty pressing matters at the moment, Chris. Right? I mean, dive straight in. Aaron Rodgers. What is happening with him? There's so much mounting doubt about what's going to happen. Increasingly looking like he may not be in Green Bay, whether that's because he retires or if he does get a trade. What are your thoughts on the whole situation anyway?
Well, it's a bit of a shock if you're not a Packers fan. I think the Packers, the fan base, they know that he's not happy. I think most people know he's not happy with the drafting, shall we say, and potentially the influence he has, or Matt LaFleur has, or anyone else has. It's him and Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, all got big contracts, or worth it. And it's whether he's moving or he feels the organisation's moving in the same direction that he wants to. But they have to do everything to keep him. Surely, give him whatever he wants to make him happy. He's a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, surely. So I can't imagine. It's weird. I can't imagine him not being at Green Bay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I read an article which was talking about all these quarterbacks that we think of as one-team players, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Philip Rivers. Drew Brees is different. Obviously, he changed early in his career. Philip Rivers went to the Colts for his last year. Brady obviously successfully went to the Bucks and won a Super Bowl there. Could Aaron Rodgers be the next on that list? Peyton Manning went to the Broncos. It doesn't feel like it's a one-team game for these quarterbacks anymore as they eke out the last remaining years on their NFL shelf life, as it were.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Like you said, those characters that we've always associated, I mean, Brady with the Pats and then moving, and just as you said, like maybe they don't need to be a one-team guy, a one franchise guy. But you can't see him in any other colours. But I suppose you said the same thing about Brady. But there were rumours of him being linked with Denver, if I'm right.
Yep.
Obviously, they've got the collection of Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, so I'm sure they'd be looking. I'm sure they would be looking.
Yeah, everywhere which I've seen these trades proposed, it doesn't seem like good value on either side of the fence. You give up so much to get a quarterback who he could have 2, he could have 3 years, but probably that's your limit, right? Especially with what Rodgers brings. The Packers don't seem to get anything which justifies giving up on short-term gains when, you made such a good point. They brought Aaron Jones back. They brought all these big players back to clearly make another championship push over the next couple of seasons. It just feels like everyone loses. And I'm pleased we talked about Brady because obviously, he had something to prove. Whilst he was the New England quarterback, everyone always kind of had that little asterisk next to his name at some point. Was it Bill Belichick or was it Brady? That's what he proved at the Bucks. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that same aspect that he's got to prove, right?
No, definitely. I think there's something different about Tom Brady, though. Like, as much as people hate him or whatever, he's on another level. Like Aaron Rodgers, fantastic and potentially the better quarterback in terms of throwing ability. But in terms of management, what he brings to the locker room, I don't think Rodgers is better than Brady in that sense.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, Chris. From a pure tangibles perspective, I don't think there's many who could argue any quarterback is better than Aaron Rodgers in recent history, even. But Tom Brady, he brings all those intangibles and obviously all that stuff which make a difference. But yeah, we'll watch it. We've already been disappointed with Deshaun Watson. Mired in controversy, but no move there for him. I would still be very surprised to see Aaron Rodgers move. It feels like flexing, but it's concerning times for any Packers fan, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about something a bit more lighthearted in the news recently. So, DK Metcalf set this new trend of NFL talent proving their worth. He sprinted, in a 100-meter race. First time he's done that, I think, ever in a competitive environment. posted a 10:36 100 meters. Did very respectfully well. And the sheer determination training required, it was a good aspect of the NFL. I know his coaches loved it, so good news. And that's quite clearly inspired other NFL players to think of themselves as sprinters too. There was a Twitter debate waged between Mecole Hardman, Henry Ruggs, Justin Jefferson joined in, and Devin White joined in. And the four of them have actually formally agreed now to go through some sort of sprint.
Really?
Yeah, obviously the biggest outlier is Devin White. I mean, the guy's a linebacker. I wouldn't have imagined Justin Jefferson would be competing with Henry Ruggs or Mecole Hardman, but anyone who you think would win that race, Chris?
Well, I thought you misspoke. I thought you said Kevin White, the ex-Bears receiver. I don't know. Let's have a think. Well, Tyreek Hill is probably the obvious one.
Not Tyreek Hill. It's Mecole Hardman, Henry Ruggs, Devin White.
I thought you said somebody else that could join.
Justin Jefferson, maybe.
No, I thought you asked who else could be in the race.
Oh, my apologies. My question was, who do you think would win out of those four?
Oh, Henry Ruggs.
Henry Ruggs, yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt.
He's so fast.
Who do you think loses? I've been toying with. I can't make my mind up between Justin Jefferson or Devin White. I think Justin Jefferson.
I think Justin Jefferson, because the thing is with like linebackers or bigger people, once they get up to speed, their acceleration isn't as good. But once they're up to speed, there's no way you're stopping them. Like Derrick Henry, for example, there's no way you're stopping him. Once he's gone, he's gone.
Yeah. yeah. It's going to be fun to see. I don't know when it's going to happen, if it will happen, or if we're just being teased at this moment in time, but I'd love to see it.
I think you have to pay pay-per-view though, or something stupid like that.
Oh yeah. Almost certainly there's some monetary aspect to this we haven't seen yet. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the fun part of the news segment. Now we get into the generally depressing stuff. Ja'Wuan James, left tackle, famously taken very high by the Dolphins in a draft where he wasn't even seen as a first-round talent, and he went, top 3 offensive tackles. He's now with the Denver Broncos on a huge salary, as you'd expect for a top premier tackle in the league. Part of the off-season routine for all players to stay in shape, particularly with COVID as it's been, is off-season workouts. You do all these workouts at home. Ja'Wuan James unfortunately suffered an accident whilst working out from home, injured himself, and the Broncos cut him. There's 3 aspects to this, which I just want to look at a bit more in depth. I mean, the primary one and the easiest thing to blame is the salary cap itself. Teams are almost incentivized to get rid of players if they can get rid of any dead money in cap, unless they plan on keeping that player, for beyond, whether that financial loss for that season and what that salary cap, which is lost, means is, counteracted by the benefit they see in future years, which obviously the Broncos didn't see with Ja'Wuan James. So first thing is this a result of the salary cap? The second part is this demonstrating just how selfish teams are? They have to act as businesses. They have to look after themselves. Is this another demonstration of that? And then the third part is, and this can't be overlooked too, is are players taking the right precautions? Are they being naive when they're working out by themselves? I couldn't testify to that. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm not going to sit here and accuse Ja'Wuan James of working out poorly, but if he was in a training environment with professional trainers around him, the same way he would have been if he was at the club workout areas, would this incident have happened? So Chris, I know your background's a physio, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and the risks and where you think the blame lies, or what the NFL can do about this.
First question was about salary cap. I think there's definitely an element to it. We know that because of coronavirus, the salary cap was affected. So teams had to cut a lot of people that they weren't expecting or needing to cut. So I think that's definitely played a part. Secondly, would it happen if he was training at the facility? It could have happened. It's one of them things that you can't always predict that it's going to happen. If you apply it to the UK, and obviously you have training injuries. And I appreciate that they're in like on the facility, for example. But I think it's just a freak. It's just a freak accident. He wasn't planning to get injured. He could have done it, just going for a run at the park instead of doing whatever training he was doing. I think it's very sort of very harsh for the teams and the franchises not to look after their players. But at the same point, they're still as a business, as you said. So if it happened on site, if it happened on the training complex, then he would have had the medical care. They would have kept him because it's happened on official grounds. Whereas because it's happened away from the centre, they kind of wash their hands of it almost, and it's a bit cheap, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know the ins and outs of the NFL rules, whether they're able to, get the same injury designation if it was a team workout compared to a private one. But it just seems to decentivize these players from working out in their own time, right? I mean, millions left on the table for this poor man. I can't say that too much. The guy has earned what in a lifetime plenty of people would love to earn. So, but yeah, it's a consideration. It's difficult to see. I know a lot of players are outraged and disheartened by it, understandably so. And that kind of moves us on. That we've seen what the worst scenario is of taking part in this stuff. The players by themselves. For the vets, they've got this option as part of their training camps. They can go through voluntary workouts. Most of the time, really doesn't matter. They choose not to, and teams happily accept that, deal with it as part of what it means to be an NFL team. But this season, more than any, players have even less reason to take part in those. They're going to subject themselves to more human contact, which we know at the moment we're all trying to avoid as much as we possibly can. And then on top of that, there's this mounting unrest amongst players. They've got to worry. Clearly situations like Juwan James's don't help. They already feel like the league's left them behind and not considered their well-being first and foremost. And it's been accelerated in what's been such a difficult period for the world as a whole. But the biggest challenge is these teams, they desperately want these players to be there for the off-season workouts. They had a season where they were marred. They didn't have the same preseason. They didn't have all of the same workout routines throughout. Days were significantly impacted. Contact was limited. And they want to try and make up for that as best as they can. So you've got teams who desperately want these players to have as much of an opportunity to train to their best standards. And you've got players who want to look after themselves and show the league they're not particularly happy. And how does that all work out? Chris, I'm a Seahawks fan, so I've read in particular about the Seahawks. Pete Carroll's got some interesting ways he wants to incorporate people back and, try and get around this side of it whilst not forcing them to train. Obviously he can't, but try and get something to get them on the facility and engaging. Have you heard anything from the Steelers? What are your thoughts initially?
I've not heard anything from the Steelers. That's the first answer. I haven't heard anything, but I think, as you said, the last off season was so broken up. There was no in-person training, and then obviously, like you said, with the injuries there, it's really difficult for the franchises to run as a business with all the rules they've had to adapt to. But they should be making more effort, or they should be making, if they haven't, they should be making effort to invite the players back and train with other people, as long as it's secure and safe, with obviously restrictions, etc. But they should be making an effort to try and bed the rookies to make their roster, make their team, their franchise better for the coming season.
Yeah, and no doubt this season is going to show the strength of the leadership, both within players and the coaches. And those teams with the strongest leadership, surely they're going to have the most chance to train. And it's going to be one of those NFL seasons where we see the biggest impact. I mean, we talked about the Packers and everything which is going on with them. If they can't get their QB1 on side, right, how are they going to convince anyone else to do anything? I mean, this could be such a clear demonstration of which NFL teams have their house in order. Do you not agree?
Well, I'm going to throw the Texans out there as well. Obviously there's been a huge overhaul with the new GM, new coaches, everything. They've signed so many free agents. I lost count. But yeah, you want to have a good unit, and that's what we've seen. If you take the Bucks last season, obviously they brought in Brady, yeah, greatest of all time, yeah. They already had a good roster, but he kind of elevated them to another level. And that's, again, you can apply that in different sports as well. If you've got a good team but a great togetherness, that can take you to the next level. Even if you're not elite of the elite, it can take you to the other level. So if you take Aaron Rodgers, I heard rumors that he had already told free agents, or prospective signings, that he wasn't going to be there. He wasn't planning to be there. So do you think that maybe the Packers have missed out on maybe a Kenny Golladay, for example? I don't think they were after him, but an elite talent maybe, because they haven't got their house in order.
Yeah, such a good point. And yeah, having your house in order reaches far further than just mandatory or voluntary off-season workouts. I didn't hear about that part for Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, I mean, that says so much in itself, doesn't it? I mean, what?
I don't know if that is true. It was rumors.
Yeah, no, but the fact that rumor exists says enough in itself anyway. Yeah, well, crazy times. Well, enough speculating about the stuff that we probably know from news outlets at best, and like I said, the rumor mill, Twitter, all those aspects. Let's start to move on to what we kind of took a look at this pod really for: fantasy NFL. Something it feels like we haven't discussed properly in ages. I posed a challenge to Chris and me, just to kind of give us a very initial overview of our top talents at the skill positions for fantasy: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Maybe predict like a dark horse as well, a flop, best rookie, whatever you wanted to bring to the table. So, Chris, let's start off at quarterback. Is your number one a name that isn't Patrick Mahomes?
It is not.
Yeah, same for me. So Patrick Mahomes, the clear number one quarterback again. Yeah. What about your number two? Who's your number two quarterback? Anyone in particular?
I've gone Josh Allen. I think he's going to take another step forward. He was up there for most of the season last year, and that was his most accurate season and really won a lot of people over. And plus, he has the ground game as well. So I think Josh Allen is set to have another good year.
Well, I started off with Josh Allen as my number two. And then I decided at that moment in time, I wanted to be bold. I wanted to predict what, I had this gut feeling about. So Josh Allen for me is actually my biggest flop. Oh. I genuinely don't see how he can maintain that. I would be, very surprised and very happy to see him continue it. Not particularly very surprised, sorry, but yeah, I would just be very pleased to see him continue that progression. But I couldn't not put him as my biggest flop, frankly. My number two was Lamar Jackson. I think the addition of Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews can only be better in my opinion as well. And now we're going to see Hollywood Brown at his best too. So yeah, for me, Lamar Jackson is my number two. And those legs, man, those legs. He's just got to figure out how to get the ball to these players now. It's a make or break season for him. Number three for me was Dak Prescott. Like I said, I went bold. Chris, what about you? Who's your number three?
I had Lamar. I had Lamar 3. Yeah, I had Lamar 3. I think he had a down season last year, and I certainly felt the full effect of that in one of my leagues. But yeah, I think they've given him some skilled players now to work with. Hopefully, he's learned how to throw the ball a bit better, and hopefully, he's able to run a bit more. So yeah, I debated not having him there. But then I think the ground game, the running game, just elevates him so much more in the fantasy aspect to another level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, nice to see we at least matched on 2 out of the 3. What about your dark horse? Who's your dark horse quarterback who you'd kind of take a flyer on in an NFL fantasy league?
So I'm not sure if it counts, but I've gone Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
I think he is set for another good year. and
Mm.
he's only in his second year. Obviously had the breakout campaign. So I'm not really sure if it counts, but I'm expecting him to have another good year.
Yeah, no, I definitely count that as dark horse. They invested heavily, Chargers, so yeah, I'd like to see him do well too. For me, it was Matt Ryan. I think the addition of Kyle Pitts, this man is flooded with talent on the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a good campaign from him. My flop, I said, was Josh Allen. Anyone that stood out for you?
I had a couple of names, but I went with Jared Goff in the end. Obviously, we're not expecting much from him. To be fair, I was debating putting Big Ben in there, but I'm not. I'm not that negative. Not that negative.
Yeah, I mean, for Jared Goff, a flop is being what, like the 28th best quarterback to maybe being benched mid-season. Yeah, there's not much left to flop for the poor man. But yeah, what about your best rookie quarterback?
Take a guess. Trevor Lawrence.
It had to be. For me, I was still thinking bold, but my heart is in love with Zach Wilson. Genuinely, I think he couldn't really have gone to a better position, as in with the Jets. So yeah, I put Zach Wilson as my best rookie quarterback. But
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
I like Zach Wilson, but I think look, Trevor Lawrence has got a better receiving core, is what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't take either in fantasy except for like the last 3 rounds, maybe a flyer, if I was stuck pinning my hopes to Matt Ryan. Yeah. Well, let's move on to running back. Arguably the most important position in fantasy. It's such a thin position and value is so hard to find. I think we're probably. Well, actually, I don't want to forebode. Who's your number 1 running back, Chris?
Christian McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey. Wow. Didn't crack my top 3.
Wow.
My number 1. Yeah. My number 1 was Derrick Henry.
He's my number 2.
Yeah. As we've seen better and better quarterbacks come into the league, it's conversely shunted Ryan Tannehill just further and further down. And I would call him a bottom half quarterback now. Middling to bottom half, like 15, 16, something like that. And when you reach that point with your quarterback, you start to rely on that running game just a bit more. What about number 2? For me, it was Saquon. I'm looking forward to Saquon being back. Kadarius Toney, suddenly he's taking the top off a defense. You've got Kenny Golladay too. I just think he's the biggest benefactor because now he not every team is expecting him to run every single down.
Yeah, definitely. They've made really good additions to give Daniel Jones some more skill players. So for me, it was CMC first, Derrick Henry, love him, second, and third was Barkley. I'm really excited to see him hopefully fully fit for a full season.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, third was Dalvin Cook. Same again for him. Pretty much everything is the same. Why not run it back again? As long as he doesn't get injured, that's the only thing you got to worry about for him. What about your dark horse, Chris?
I had J.K. Dobbins. Now, obviously, Baltimore Ravens player. He started to feature more certainly towards the end of last season, and I think the running game with both Lamar and J.K. Dobbins is set to take a good turn. Obviously, it wasn't as good as it was the year before. They've got rid of Mark Ingram. They've moved on from him, so I think J.K. Dobbins could be a sneaky one.
Yeah, good shout. I like it. For me, I went with Josh Jacobs. Dark horse is, from about the top 6, 7 running backs to top 3. I could seriously see him making that jump. I think he's a great player. And then I also had a slash Cam Akers for my slightly bolder prediction. As long as he doesn't get stuck in a running back committee, I mean, he was incredible to end the year, particularly for them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think a great shout with Cam Akers, and he was one that I was debating for. But I think his draft cost will be too high for me to consider him a dark horse. I probably would take him over Josh Jacobs. I have Josh Jacobs as my biggest flop, actually.
Really?
Yeah, really great skill set. He's just not utilized, and we saw the Raiders decimate their O-line, and they signed Kenyon Drake to big money. I just don't see how they don't eat into each other's workload.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very good point. It'll be interesting to see what they do. That brain trust in Las Vegas, it could be anything with Gruden and Mayock. For me, my biggest flop was Zeke. I think he just continues that flop. I know he had an awful season last season, but I think the guy's done. Frankly, I don't think he has any value there. I think Dallas are tired of paying him the money they are, and I'm surprised they didn't cut him, frankly.
But on the flip side, he was better with Dak Prescott in the first 4 games, and then he fell off a cliff, as did most of the offense. So with Dak Prescott back, I think they have a connection there. So I don't think he's I'm not anticipating him to be a flop, but he's not in the top 4, top 5 for me, but he's top 10.
But what does that quarterback running back connection really mean? Screens, maybe a better play action pass scenario, so defenses don't quite dive on the run, but a good play action pass is meant to enable the pass more than the run. I just don't see the benefit there at all, just genuinely.
I mean, they did have Tony Pollard, and he obviously looks like a very competent runner. And he was certainly a lot better than Zeke at the end of last season. So it'd be interesting to see the change and the efficiency of the offense with Dak back under center.
Yeah, absolutely. No more excuses for Zeke this season, that's for sure. Best rookie, is it Travis Etienne? That's mine.
No, it's Najee Harris.
I should have guessed.
But my reasoning for that is that Najee is the number 1 for the Steelers, hands down. Whereas I think James Robinson is the starter. I don't think Travis Etienne is the starter for Jacksonville. I do think that he will overtake James Robinson, but I don't think he's the starter, and that's why.
Interesting. It's a good point. It's a good argument. My opinion on Najee Harris is well documented throughout this pod's history, so I won't go into why. As soon as I thought of top rookie running back, the first name that was crossed off my list was Najee Harris.
Well, when we made our sort of top 3, 4 running backs coming into the draft, I agreed with you. I preferred Travis Etienne, but I think the fit for Najee Harris and the Steelers for us is a better fit. And maybe I'm just getting hyped with all the OTAs and preseason photos I'm seeing of him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, look up the rookie running backs who ended up in a spot where they could even do anything. You've got Javonte Williams going to Denver Broncos. You've got Kenneth Gainwell going to Philadelphia Eagles, where he's a job share. And then you got Trey Sermon going to the 49ers. I mean, there's really not many that ended up in a good spot. So if it's not ETN, then I would pick Najee Harris just because he's the only one in the backfield, but he was already crossed off my list. So I was left with one choice. Let's move on to wide receivers, the ever deep position in fantasy. Looking down the list, there's question marks you could put to all the top guys of will they be there? But I just feel like my number 1, there's nothing you could take as a knock against him. I mean, he plays with the best quarterback in the league. He's got the best tight end in the league right next to him, right? Tyreek Hill, how can you choose anything other than that man?
Yeah, I think him, this was the easiest one to pick my number. I don't know, maybe Mahomes, the quarterback, and maybe tight end as well. Spoiler. But yeah, I've gone Tyreek Hill number 1. Say no more.
Yeah, absolutely. What about for number 2 for you, Chris?
I've got Stephon Diggs matching up with, I think Josh Allen's going to have another good year. Stephon Diggs, again, elevated his game and the Bills' game to another level. So Stephon Diggs, number 2.
Yeah, I doubled down on my Josh Allen prediction, and Stephon Diggs isn't in the top 3, which was my hardest decision throughout the process.
Wow.
I put DeAndre Hopkins, number 2. I think another season with Kyler Murray, it just beds that relationship. I think it can only do good things. And then number 3, Justin Jefferson for me.
Wow. It's really hard to pick these ones because you've got so many good talents, as you said. I've actually gone Calvin Ridley, number 3. really excited to see him, I think, become the 1A ahead of Julio Jones. And that's before he may or may not get traded. But yeah, Justin Jefferson is definitely up there. Nuke Hopkins, definitely up there. I think you could toss a coin between any of them and be happy with who you drafted.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably make a case for 20 guys to be in this top three. I don't think you could make a case for 19 of those 20 to be top one, as we agreed. But, 2 and 3, that spot's pretty wide open, in my opinion. And obviously, you mentioned Julio maybe gets traded. If he doesn't get traded, he'll almost certainly get injured. So, yeah, I agree. Calvin Ridley, time to really take over and be 1A in that offense. What about your dark horse?
Yeah, again, so many to choose from. I really like obviously Deontay Johnson, but I don't think Big Ben's gonna be very good this year. CD Lamb, can you call him a dark horse after he did so well? There's quite a few. I do like Curtis Samuel, gone to Washington. Obviously got Fitz in there at the helm, so I've gone for Curtis Samuel. He played well towards the end of the season last year, so see what you can do in Washington.
I love it. I absolutely love that dark horse. Curtis Samuel in Washington. Watch this space. For me, I split it down the middle. I had Kenny Golladay and I had Hollywood Brown. Two huge benefactors from changes. Hollywood Brown gets Rashad Bateman. Suddenly, he can just be the blowaway guy. Just speed past people. Maybe operate in the slot, but I doubt it. I reckon that's where you put Bateman and you let Hollywood Brown do his things on the outside. And then Kenny Golladay. I mean, Daniel Jones has been dealing with receivers who can't get separation for his entire NFL career. And he's always thrown up these jump balls. You watch him and, the thing which is his biggest knock is he doesn't know when to give up on a play. You got Kenny Golladay, and it's going to be even harder to train the guy to give up on a play anyway. Kenny Golladay's always got a man next to him, but he still makes these catches. So I think I'm really looking forward to that situation in New York. Definitely a mid-round bet of mine, which I'll be taking in most fantasy leagues at this point. Yeah, biggest flop for me is linked with who I almost put as my biggest flop at quarterback if he wasn't already average to low. Biggest flop's Robert Woods, linked with Matt Stafford. I just don't see how those two skill sets match up at all. You got the deep throw bomber, and you got the short route expert. It's like a match made in hell, right?
Interesting, because I had Cooper Kupp as my biggest flop as well. Similar sort of thing. I think big fan of Matt Stafford. We didn't see very much from either or any of the receivers there in last season. Woods, Cooper Kupp, they all had very distinctly average. I remember Cooper Kupp had that crazy 240-yard game like a couple of years ago, and he just sort of fell off a cliff last year. I'm not sure if he was injured. I can't quite remember, but I had Cooper Kupp, so that's interesting. We've both gone for the same team.
Yeah. We're definitely low on the Rams. What about your best rookie, Chris? Anyone in particular that stood out for you?
I've gone Heisman winner Devonta Smith. I think everyone's having a knock on his slight frame, but you don't win the Heisman Trophy as a wide receiver for nothing. You don't put up the numbers he did for nothing. And he was miles ahead of everybody. Fantastic hands, great reading of the game, great route running. So I've gone Devonta Smith.
I like it. I was really toying with Devonta Smith. It was just Jalen Hurts that stopped me. Same very much for Jalen Waddle. Tua stopped me there. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, there's a lot of intrigue, but I wasn't sold. For me, it was my favorite receiver pre-draft. Well, not my favorite as in my opinion of the best, but the guy who had a sweet spot for, which was Rondale Moore in Arizona. I just think, he's got pedigree. He's demonstrated that in his freshman season in college. He put up monster numbers. This is a guy who hits the ground running literally and statistically. And I just think he's in the right team to do it. Tutored by A.J. Green, DeAndre Hopkins. Love the guy. Love the system. Think it's a match made in heaven. And I'm really dreading it as a Seahawks fan.
I think, yeah, really good opportunity there. I think he definitely comes in as the two opposite Hopkins. I think I'm not sure if we know about Fitz, whether he's still around or ever he's ever present. Christian Kirk, not sure if they want to move on from him. He's been okay at best. So adding somebody with this rundown Wallace's talent, speed, definitely gives them another option. I think Cliff Kingsbury's under pressure as well to perform.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, a lot of pressure there. They've obviously changed their direction in the running game too. So, all these things for me show that sign that their eggs are firmly in Kyler Murray's basket right now. Yeah, we'll see if that pays off for them. Well, last skill position is tight end. I think we've clearly agreed on the top one, which is Travis Kelce. Yeah. And I think to say any more belittles just how good he is. So, number 2, who's your number 2, Chris?
I was really close with these two, but I have gone Kittle. I really was tying whether to put my number 3 at number 2, purely because obviously gonna have Jimmy G or Trey Lance for Kittle. And I just don't know if that's enough, But having said that, Kittle's been the second tight end with Jimmy G. So that's I've just got him second.
Yeah, I did it. I decided to flip them around. So Darren Wallace, my number 2, Kittle's my number 3. I think if somehow Derek Carr even develops just that little bit more as a passer, Darren Waller is going to blow everyone away. I almost put Derek Carr as my sleeper quarterback, which I'm not a huge fan of his, to say the least. So yeah, that was a big decision there not to put him in, but a close one. But yeah, Waller's number 2 for me. Chris, he was your number 3, right?
Yeah, definitely. He just gets better and better, and I think Derek Carr has shown more glimpses of what he can achieve than Jimmy G has. So this is why it was really close. But if all what we hear about Trey Lance is true, and he does come in and take over starting job sooner rather than later, I think that could be a changer, that game changer. But very, very close. Love Darren Waller. Love what he does. It's just a shame that he went to the Ravens first.
Yeah, it's true. It's such a good point as well about Trey Lance. I mean, I think Kittle's value is intrinsically linked to what the 49ers do at quarterback, more than it's ever been for any player. We talked about Marcus Mariota and his connection with Delaney Walker and his reliance on tight ends. But I think Trey Lance is going to be even more so. My biggest concern for him, my biggest knock is I think in his mind, he is so caught up in trying to maintain this perfect 100% completion, 0 interception margin, which he views himself as, that he's only going to try and make passes which he knows are open. And that's either going to give Kittle a lot of targets or very few. I just don't know yet. But yeah, that's the biggest thing for me. It's tough to know.
Just to counter that point, I can't see that maintaining. I can't see that attitude maintaining through the professional level. It's a totally different game, and we see that year in, year out with people that come up and we're expecting so much, and they don't translate to the pros. So I understand what you're saying in terms of college, but the step up from North Dakota State and their conference to even the one above, and then to the pros, is so different. So I'm sure that the coaches are feeding into him, like, you are going to throw interceptions. Aaron Rodgers throws interceptions. Brady throws interceptions. Peyton, you name every single quarterback. There's never been anyone that has never not thrown an interception over a consistent period rather than just one throw. But, I'm sure they're feeding him in, saying you are going to throw it, and it's just how you adapt and read the game and learn from it. So I can't see that happening, but I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the right team. Shanahan, incredible guy. I don't doubt that's what they're doing too, Chris. And I think, if that's my opinion and that's a genuine one, which is shared amongst the experts, of course they're training him out of it. But yeah, it will just be interesting to see how it pans out. I guess he's got to sit a year probably this season, maybe midway through the year he comes in. Moving back to fantasy tight ends, for me, my dark horse was Mike Gesicki. I just think that the Dolphins are going to be in the red zone more frequently this season. And with better wide receivers, it gives him more space to operate in. Plus, I think it's a contract year for Gesicki. I think they declined his fifth-year option. I could be wrong. But I just think all these things come together, and I'm expecting a big, big fantasy year from him.
Yeah, I really like that shout, actually. I hadn't even considered Gesicki, because for me, I really like him. So I don't see him as like a lower option. But when you look at like the draft rankings, he's only like 10th or 12th. He's always around the end of tight end 1. But I really like Gesicki, and he makes some fantastic catches. And he's energetic. He brings a lot of stuff to the team. He's relatively athletic for a tight end as well. So yeah, I really like that shout. For me, I'm with Pat Freiermuth, Steelers rookie. I've got dark horse because Eric Ebron is okay. He's nothing special, but he does a job. And I think there was a lot of, after probably the best rookie that you've got listed and the one that I've got listed, Pat Freiermuth was the second best rookie coming out. So I have gone Pat Freiermuth. Maybe it's a homer pick, but yeah. That's what I've gone for. And leading on, the best rookie for me, obviously, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. I mean, it says so much that the best rookie could not be considered the best dark horse alone, right? Yeah. I mean, because, if we were able to choose Kyle Pitts, he would be our best dark horse, I'm sure. Freiermuth, I think you tried to quickly get away from us discussing that one. Let me just say, awful pick. Terrible tight end on what looks like an increasingly poor team. Sorry to say that, Chris, for your Steelers, and sorry to rain on your rookie parade. I've been a conservative Seahawk fan. I avoided DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, avoided Chris Carson at running back, even for the dark horse. Russell Wilson at quarterback, but you went straight in and put your heart on your sleeve. And I'm sorry to just shoot you down because
that's okay.
That's gonna burn. Yeah, but yeah, for me,
it's gonna happen a lot this season, I think.
Yeah, better to go in optimistic. This is an early point when we can make our predictions, so could make you look very smart at the end of the season. Of course, for me, my best rookie was Kyle Pitts too. Biggest flop though, Hunter Henry. I think he's been billed so much with the Pats, but yeah, is he going to be healthy? Can he display what we all expected he would be? I really don't think so.
I smashed it out of the park with that one. I've got exactly the same. I just don't get the signing, and I just don't get the signing for New England. They signed Jonnu Smith for big money, and who is a better tight end in my opinion. And then they signed Hunter Henry, who again on big money. So they must plan on using him, but I just don't get it.
Especially when they relatively scrimped on wide receiver, but Pats are going to do what Pats are going to do, right? They're going to reinvent and try and prove this model like it was the two tight ends which made Brady. That's all I can think.
Yeah, well, Uncle Bill,
Well, okay. Do you think Mac Jones is starting this season?
No,
never.
I don't think he starts unless there's an injury to Cam Newton in sort of preseason. I don't think he starts the season. And then I think their bye week, because that's normally when you would do, isn't it? You normally change over in the bye week when you've got 2 weeks to, obviously you'll be training with them, and then that'll be the changeover. Like we saw it with Miami last year, moving to Tua. But I think, I can't remember which game week it is for the Pats, but I think it's later in the season. So it just doesn't make any sense to change over at that point, unless they're out of the running, which they might be under Cam Newton. Who knows?
Yeah, for me, it's either one of two things, and Mac Jones is one of the few quarterbacks who goes into this position with this capability, in my opinion. But he either does a Russell Wilson and suddenly wins that locker room immediately, and is the week one starter. Basically since he walks in the building, and the training and the coaching staff know it at that point, or they try and go down the Brady route and they basically don't play him until they're forced to play him because someone gets injured, more like a Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert style, which got accelerated, or, a year and a half, like what happened with Tom Brady. Yeah, I agree with you in general, Chris. I hope for the scenario where he starts. I really do. Well, I think he's a great quarterback. I look forward to him proving everyone wrong at the NFL level. Yeah, well, that wraps up the sort of fantasy look ahead. What we'll obviously do, just like all this stuff, we're going to start to ramp up towards fantasy season. We're going to keep our eye on the pulse and or finger on the pulse, to use the metaphor correctly. And then, we'll come back with some more interesting rankings, try and bring something bold to the table. But yeah, thanks for listening in. As always, you can follow us on Twitter. Check out YouTube, subscribe if you can. That'd be really helpful. Give us a like, drop us a comment. In the Slotbusters will be back soon, so look out for that. And thanks again. See you next time.